Hello and welcome to another video. Today's video we are going to be making this card. I showed it to you guys a little bit earlier, a few weeks ago. I think this is going to be the design I am making for my family members this year for the holidays. I thought it looks really sleek and I can change my sentiments because I purchased. They have this in English, obviously, but because the vast majority of my extended family live in Quebec, I purchased it in French, and you can use any one of these. Many of these work for either your innie or your outie, if you will, sentiment. So that is one of the things that I got in French for this year. I thought that it would be nice to have a variety of sentiments, even if I'm doing the very similar design. So I'm using this stamp set for the sentiments, and I'm going to use the Snowman season for my image. So I might, depending on how I choose to tackle it, I have to do I've got a list of all the family members that I give cards to every year, and I'll need to see how many need to be in French, because maybe I'll, alternate between these guys depending on how it works. But so right now I'm going to use this guy here because he takes up just the right amount of space where I can have that sentiment sort of in this middle piece. And in case you can't see it, let me bring it up a little closer. There you go. See that? That right there is just a score line. I did not do anything fancy with the embossing. It's just a score line at 1/2 of an inch on all sides, which creates this kind of frame-like look, and I thought that really makes that card pop. So let me show you how to make this card. It's really simple, and I changed up the colors a little bit. So I kept the pool party for the snowman, but I changed the hat and the scarf from Misty Moonlight, and I figured I'll try in Pretty Peacock. Let's see what that looks like. So what you need for this card, let's stamp first. So I have two things. I've got my Whisper White card base. It is 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored at 5 1/2. And then I have this piece, which is going to go on top. This piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So before you do anything else, if you have a scoreboard, you can use your scoreboard. If you don't have your scoreboard, or this one's just handier, I just use my paper trimmer. So in my paper trimmer, move your cutting blade out of the way, but use your score blade and just line it up right here at the 1/2 inch mark. If it's easier, you can line it up on this side at the 3 1/2 inch, if that's an easier measurement for you to remember. But essentially just 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, which on this side would be 4 3/4, 1/2 inch, and I am going forward and then back through just because I do want to make sure it's prominent enough, because it'll create this lovely little frame. I don't know if you can see it right there. There you go. That's a little bit better. So there's that. Okay, so we've got our frame. So now all we need to do is do our stamping and coloring and assembling. So like I said, this card seems like a very, it has the potential of being really fancy, but really it's not that bad at all. So we'll use I believe the D block is just perfect for it. So there's that. Let's pick it up. And that was risky. If my stamp had not been cleaned, I might have risked having to redo that piece. Woo! All right. So I'm going to use my Paper Pierce matte because it is a photopolymer stamp. So I really do need to make sure that I am using the right type of tools to make sure it lasts and looks good. So let's go ahead now, because I'm using my blends, I need to use the Memento black. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. I'm worried I'm going to ruin it. So I just stamp, stamp, stamp. And obviously, if this is the design I choose to mass produce for my family members, I will be preparing all of the pieces all at once, and then assembling all at once after I've like stamped and then colored all at once, etc., etc. So on my sample, notice here's the bottom of that score line. I stamped him up, looks like about 1/4 of an inch. There we go. So now I'm going to do that. I might do it a little bit higher. There's that. Nice and inked up. Boom. Yeah, just this one's more like 3/8 of an inch there. So now I'll go ahead while I'm inking up things. I will stamp my sentiments. Let's see how I will do. Let's see. How about, here we go. We'll do Joyeuse Fête. That means essentially happy holidays. That's an appropriate sentiment. And I'll get my appropriate G block, pick that up. And then the catch here is because I put it on my small block, I need to make sure it's level. Oh, well, that's a little crooked. That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. My family members love me, right? They'll forgive me. It'll be homemade and not Hallmark. And worst case, what I'll do is I'll keep this for myself. If you were to make this card, you probably wouldn't have the same mistake. I have like my filming stuff right here, so I couldn't get right over it like I normally would be. Another way to get around it too, especially if you're worried about it, put your sentiment on a larger block, but just make sure not to rock it back and forth. So just something to note there in case you don't want it to be quite as a little bit off. That was another advantage of having this scripty, swirly text here. So now we're done with our stamping. That's all we needed. Let's go ahead and color these. So I'm using a few different colors. I'm using pumpkin, oh my goodness, sorry. I'm using dark pumpkin pie for the nose. I am using Pool Party. Sorry, I realized I hadn't grabbed my color lifter yet. So I'm using, oh my goodness. I'm using Pretty Peacock for the hat and scarf, and Pool Party to go with that. So, let me show you here how I'm going to do that. First things first, let's color his nose, get that out of the way. It'll be done and done. There you go. You could probably use the light pumpkin pie as well, especially if you like using the dark for, say, maybe you've made a bunch of pumpkins recently. So there is that too. So for the hat and the scarf, I'm just going to use the light and the dark. So if you have a particular color you prefer, you can absolutely use those colors on this scarf. You don't have to have two different colors for this. You can just use one of the combo packs. If you have if you wish to put it on not a white card base, I could have done like a Pretty Peacock card base underneath, right? There could have been a lot of options there. And so there we go. I'm just using the fine tip for this. Normally, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I tend to prefer the brush tip. But this image is just detailed enough where I really do need to use the fine tip here. So, and then let's see, the ultimate test. Do I use the dark color for the top of the hat or the light? I think I'm going to use the light one for this one. Because, oh, make sure that's my light peacock. There we go. Because I think if I picked dark, it would just come off a smidge too dark. And I can always, because this is an alcohol marker, you can actually kind of go over it a few times, and it'll get a little bit darker with each pass. So now here's the trick. You can do a couple of neat things using Pool Party and this color lifter. So if you notice in my sample, the snowman itself has some color to it. And what I've done is I've taken the light Pool Party and I've kind of given him a wash over, and then I've gone in with the color lifter to pull some of that color. In actuality, it's actually just pushing the color down. So it's called a color lifter, but in actuality, it's a color pusher, if you will. And so I'm just laying down a little bit. I'm not, making sure it's super thick or super dark, because I don't want that. I want it to be essentially just a little bit of something that stands out. So while it's still wet, go ahead with the color lifter and kind of blend it all in, because this is essentially going to leave some color there, but it's also going to push down some of it. And so you're not going to find it to be super dark as a result. There we go. Boop. There we go. So, and then as that dries, you'll see that it'll have more of this look. So then I used the dark, whoops, that's the light. There's the dark pool party to do this kind of snowbank. You do not have to use the dark. If you want to use the light, you can. My light is running low, and I want to use up my dark a little bit just to be not essentially accumulating a bunch of dark pool parties when not necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color my layer here in the dark. Right, and so it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be super even, but then I'm going to go in with the color lifter and again kind of push it down a little bit, and this will lighten it up a little bit. I did not do that here, and I think as it dries you'll see what I mean. There we go. Alright, so let's let that dry for a few. I'm going to adhere the adhesive backed snowflakes. There are two sheets, so one has kind of like a pinkish look to them, and the other has more of a myriad of colors. I chose just random colors. You do not need to pick random ones. You could pick only the bluish ones. I'm gonna pick this one that's kind of greenish, this one that's kind of bluish, and let's pick this one's kind of yellowish. That's kind of fun. And then, yep, right by his belly. So there we go. If you wanted to, you could really add in more if you'd like. I thought this would add a nice little look of color without being overly covered in sequins. The other benefit for this particular card for me, by the way, especially if you're sending cards abroad, this card for me is going to be going to Canada, which means that the lighter it is, the better. So I did pop this up on dimensionals, which if you don't want to do that, especially if you're sending many cards far distances and you're worried about weight. I know some families send like holiday cards with their families, with all of their cards for the seasons. So if you are one of those families, it might make sense that you want to have as little weight as possible. So if that's the case, you might want to just put this flush with your card. So on my end, we've got that ready. Notice I was pushing that ink down, which is why it's seeping through. I'm just going to put down my dimensionals. I'm putting down a fair number of them because I do want it to hold up in the mail. I don't want it to get too damaged. If you have foam strips, you could use those as well. We sell foam strips, but they are a little bit taller than these dimensionals. So if you don't want it to be too tall, you might want to avoid those for this particular card design. So there's that. And so I'm just going to go through, pick off my backings. I went through my daughter's room and I found it. I found my take your pick tool under her messy bed and found all the pieces, although I need to find the cap, and I thought I left a cap here, and we'll find out if I'm right when I go to not stab myself on accident. Because I usually keep my take your pick tool with the pick side up rather than the spatula side. So there you go. And then you just line it up nice and level. I recommend before you push it down, just kind of lay it flat. And then if you need to wiggle it, you can. If you don't, just gently press it. And there we go. So notice here, the color lifter is doing its job there. You can see it's significantly lighter than my original sample. I could go back in and add this color lifter, but I kind of like how that's coming out there. It has a little bit more oomph there. So let me know which one you like, but this design can be used for any, honestly, any stamp set even, but I just thought it would be nice, simple. Having this little border here is just enough to be a little unique, and helps you with smaller images without having to have a ton of layers to bring attention to those images. So if you need any of my materials that I used for this project, you're free to drop a line or get in touch with me, and I will help you as best as I can. The ingredients, essentially all of the pieces that you need to make this card, will be linked below on my blog post. I'll have a list of the items that I use as well as dimensions. If you have interest in subscribing, you'll be able to see more videos when I post them. I've been slacking a little bit lately. I'm going to try to re-up that. It's been a pretty crazy school year so far, so it's been taking some adjusting. So upcoming though will be more autumn videos and a few more Christmas and other holidays coming up videos, and in 6 days time, and I think a few hours, in 6 days time, the new mini catalog for the new year comes, and the PDF is available for me. So I'll be able to see what types of things I might want to put on a pre-order to be able to show you guys some new upcoming stuff that you guys might want to get your hands on in these coming months. So if you have any needs, let me know and I will happily help you. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!